out there, debatable, that perhaps, even though he ended the season covered in green confetti, maybe he's not doing enough. Well, here's his response.
It's been a very long time being told that I got to do it a certain type of way. That didn't get me the win when I did it the way that everybody wanted me to do it. When you put so much energy towards the product and performance, you kind of lose sight of what the main thing is in winning. And so I think having that loss has done nothing but motivate me from that point on in 2022 now to just find ways to win regardless of how it looks.
Okay, Brew, your reaction.
You can't help but love this.
Okay.
You can't help but love this. Look, this is a guy that's been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1 in his 4 years as a starter. He could easily have come out and just said, you know, look, I would like to see, you know, in light of all the criticism or doubt about him, look, I've shown, you know, in the Super Bowl and in other games that I can throw it, you know, and I have individual goals too. So I would like to get out there and throw it a little bit more. I'll talk to Nick about, you know, we'll work some of that. He could have easily said that and been justified to do it. But he said, I am about winning. And I'm glad he threw it out early. Like, I know he was asked the question, but I'm glad he got it out there now, because now this sends a message. And I know he and A.J. Brown are friends, but it kind of sends a message like, look, we're not changing anything. We're going to win. If it means throwing it 31, 32 times here and there, then I'll do it. If it means throwing it 20, like I did, I think, when they beat the Rams, then we'll do that in the playoffs. So he's just about winning. And look, I've said this before, and I'm going to put it out. I'm going to keep putting it out there until it really gets out in the media landscape, like a lot of my revelations have.
Jordan
Brock Purdy as Drew Brees. Mahomes is Jordan
You're still on the Brock Purdy as Drew Brees?
Yeah,
by the way,
absolutely.
we can't
Saquon is going to have
Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, like all that. People grab hold of that months after I said it, maybe a little longer. But his legacy is going to be about winning. He is going to be like the Terry Bradshaw of this generation.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Russell Wilson.
Well, I've said he's like Terry Bradshaw.
Okay.
No, I think he'll win more. Russ got one. I think Jalen will probably get another one down the line at some point. But Bradshaw was never viewed as the best quarterback in the league. He was MVP 1 year, but Jalen's already been second in the MVP race. He may get an MVP as well. But Bradshaw, in the playoffs, obviously won 4 Super Bowls, and in the big moments, no one was more clutch than Terry Bradshaw. He played his best football, and that's what Jalen Hurts will go down as. So I love that he put this out there.
That would be great.
And that's what they need to do as a team.
Maybe I was projecting with the Russell Wilson piece of it, because Russell Wilson, to me, is the more contemporary example of a guy who went through something very similar. And I did not think it was unfair then, and I don't think it's unfair now, where you give the guy credit for how he plays in big moments. You give the guy credit for leadership, toughness, you know, those things. But you also recognize, like we did with Russ early on, that, again, and that Cam has talked about this, and we'll get into the Cam conversation in a bit, you know, was he driving the bus of that team, or was that, in Russell's case, Legion of Boom led Marshawn as the kind of lead drummer, and he's on. I didn't play in a band like Wilds did, I assume.
I never played in
You
a
just
band.
seem like a guy.
Played a little clarinet.
I can see like an air supply.
Absolutely, yeah. You know what? You know what I mean? Like, that's what it was with Russ early. And then later in Russ's career, he developed more as a passer. Now, the teams weren't as good. I wouldn't put that on him because mid-2010s Russell Wilson was awesome. You know what I mean? Was never considered the best quarterback in football, famously. Never got an MVP vote. But was consistently really good. And you at times, while it's not a knock, seem like almost annoyed by this conversation, while I love it, because I think this is a consistent through line across sports, which is who deserves the credit, and can you, like, what I think the late, great Kobe Bryant was on the record. what championship meant the most, at least while he was playing. Now, maybe at sometimes he would say that Brady said the next one or whatever, but it was the first one without Shaq.
Yep.
Because there was always the question, can he do it without Shaq? We talk about Brady and Belichick all the time. Like, Tom did it without Bill, but Bill didn't do it without Tom. Jeff Van Gundy, during the broadcast of the 2018 Eastern Conference Finals, says, LeBron, and at this point, LeBron already had 3 championships, had been to 8 finals, said LeBron James will never accomplish anything greater than getting this team to these NBA finals, because it was the inverse of this. Now, you can disagree with the take,
Cleveland,
but but the point was that we deify man. Look what he dragged as far as he dragged it, even if it doesn't win a championship. And we look with a questioning eye to the stacked squads. It just
Okay. But this is where you're just not being consistent when we have these conversations. And this is what I've been pushing up against since day one of this channel, man. You all know it. You all know it. I mean, now you want to see who deserves credit for what, when the Patrick Mahomeses of the world, you just want to give all the credit to them. And when they lose or they struggle, you want to pass away the blame. I mean, that's the ridiculous. Literally just the other day, I did the clip where Nick was talking about Mahomes and the deep ball and just said, well, 23 was all because of the drop passes, so we can just throw that one out the door. And it's like, wait, really? Count me? That's just that easy? That's all we got to do? You know, who was the driver of the bus in 23? Not Mahomes. So it's just like, this is the frustrating conversation. And now you want to talk about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and how they're combined. Yeah, we want to downplay what Andy Reid does for Mahomes, and then we want to downplay what Jalen Hurts does with the Philadelphia Eagles. We have no consistency. None. Zero. I mean, Nick Wright the other day was talking about how he thinks that there's no good receivers for the Baltimore Ravens, and that their defense was not good and was very inconsistent. So then, isn't it amazing that Lamar Jackson was able to drag his team to the playoffs? Don't you then give him the benefit of the doubt for not being able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game? But instead, the take is he played awful. He was awful. And then, again, other takes are Josh Allen's not good enough. He can't surpass the Kansas City Chiefs. But then again, this very week, he was like, well, Josh Allen maybe doesn't deserve as much blame because, like, his defenses in the playoffs are always really bad, and Sean McDermott's had that, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, well, wait a second. Then why do you put all the losses on him when trying to elevate Patrick Mahomes? So, like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. And you want to talk about that Jalen Hurts deserves less credit because we talk about stacked teams, yet we want to never talk about the amazing teams that someone like Patrick Mahomes has had. That is the most ridiculous, most insane thing ever, because nobody was doing that in 2018. Nobody was doing that in 2019. Nobody was doing that in 2020, 21, 22. They started to now invent things that, oh, he didn't really have that great of a team in 22 or have that great of a team in 23. And it's absolute nonsense. I've already made those takes, already made all those videos. I'm not going to rehash that. And that's why you can't talk about Jalen Hurts without talking about the other most recent successful quarterbacks and who's considered the great quarterbacks in the NFL of this last decade. You can't. It's impossible because of the conversation that people try to force with Jalen Hurts. It's like, well, then what about all of this over here? That's the insanity part of it. It really is. It really is. You want to talk about who's driving what and what's not driving? Who performs in the biggest moments? So you want to tell me that a team like the Baltimore Ravens or the 49ers is great enough to get to the AFC Championship game, is great enough to get to the NFC Championship game, is great enough to get to a Super Bowl, but then when their quarterback is not great enough to be great in that moment, we just act like we either want to rip them or throw it to the side, but then downplay when Jalen Hurts plays out of his mind in these massive moments. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. I went through all these highlights, even in 22, because I was going over the highlights for Jalen Hurts, and I made an epically long 56-minute video. I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't seen it. But it's stunning Stunning. How much protection and how wide open those receivers were for Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. And yet no one talks about the masterclass of Andy Reid. It's always Mahomes, 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 Mahomes. But with Jalen Hurts, it's everyone else but Jalen Hurts. And that's insane. That makes no sense. Zero. And all of a sudden, this team is a stacked team. I want to know why. I want to know why. Since when are having a couple of rookies on defense, Darius Slay, who's 57 years old, CJ Gardner-Johnson, who they can't keep, any type of attitude or culture around, Jalen Carter, who Nick Wright said is pretty good, Mekhi Becton on the O-line, Cam Jurgens, first-year starting center, 36-year-old Lane Johnson. Why? Nick Sirianni, who's a bad coach. Kellen Moore, who was awful with the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott actually got better without Kellen Moore. And Justin Herbert, he didn't even have success with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. And Vic Fangio, he's actually not that good of a defensive coordinator. The Broncos couldn't get rid of him fast enough. The Miami Dolphins couldn't get rid of him fast enough. But now this is a stacked team with amazing coaching staff, etc., etc., etc. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. I want to know, how does any of this make sense? And if the Philadelphia Eagles were such a stacked roster and so unbelievably amazing, why did you think the Kansas City Chiefs were going to win? Why are you so confident that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to win? I mean, you're going up clearly a stacked roster. When you have a stacked team and a stacked roster, people are acting like, well, then it was essentially inevitable. After the Philadelphia Eagles won, it's looked at as, well, it was inevitable. This roster, this team was so good, it's like they're too big to fail. Then why did so many people pick against them? That's what I want to know. And I went through all the highlights. I went through all the clips of Jalen Hurts throughout the playoffs, against the Packers, against the Rams, against the Commanders, against the Chiefs, both Super Bowls. And you want to have the conversation, who's dragging what? It's just absurd at this point. It really is. It's insanity. It really, really, really is. We just can't have real, honest, consistent conversations. And it fundamentally does not make any sense. It does not make any sense. None. Zero. I mean, Jalen Hurts in 22 played out of his mind and was an MVP candidate and would have won the MVP if he didn't get hurt. In the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback who got the MVP, it wasn't even close. Jalen Hurts clearly outplayed him. So when we want to talk about, well, you have to just prove that you can do something this way, and then it's okay, which is why they give the benefit of the doubt for Patrick Mahomes' numbers dipping in 23, 24 there, because well, look what he did in 2018, look what he did in 2019, etc. And it's okay. And Jalen Hurts has proven this as well. Jalen Hurts has proven to be an actual true to the core dual threat quarterback, actually leading the league in rushing, leading the playoffs for all quarterbacks in rushing, and throwing touchdown passes and passing yards. He's actually proven to be a true dual threat. And again, we want to remove that from him. It makes no sense. None. Zero. In 2018, Patrick Mahomes played out of his mind. In 2019, he threw 1,000 less passing yards and had half the touchdown passes. Nobody said, oh, well, the Kansas City Chiefs won because they asked Patrick Mahomes to do less. Not one person had that take. Not one person. And then when he loses in the Super Bowl against Brady, everyone just said, well, he had no O-line. His own team was good. I thought if you could drive the bus, then it doesn't matter. They keep creating false discussions. It's just absurd. It really just never ends. And it's so funny because coming off of a soundbite where Jalen Hurts gives you An unbelievably amazing answer. And we want to just also toss that to the side. When Patrick Mahomes, after he won in 23, he said, it wasn't a lot of fun. I want to get back to having more exciting offense. Okay. Interesting. How about the guy who's like, I'm just here to win, man. And you know what's awesome? It's actually authentic. He backs up his words with his actions. He actually not only talks the talk, but then walks the walk. And I respect that. In an era where we have someone like Dak Prescott straight up lying, saying, I'd give all the money away if I could just win a Super Bowl. You have someone like Jalen Hurts who actually tells the truth and is actually honest and real. And we want to pretend like that's not something special, that he constantly puts the team as the focal point. I mean, that's incredible. That really is. And that's awesome. And showing how he's here to learn and grow and evolve. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, it really is. It really, really is. And yet we want to downplay that as well. Because Cam Newton said so or something. I like, who cares? I mean, what a cartoon character. Seriously. It's just absurd at this point. It really is. It really, really, really is. I find it hilarious. And how Nick's like, oh, well, it's okay to have these kind of conversations. Like, it's fun and interesting. You know, we figure out where does the credit go. But yet, when it comes to Mahomes, it's just 100% credit for him. And when it's time to divvy up the blame for when you come up short, not his fault at all. I mean, it's just absurd. It really is. It really is. I mean, even something like with Mahomes, everyone always wants to talk about his ankle or how his knee and how he was injured. And it's like, Jalen Hurts' knee got destroyed in the playoffs. To the point where Nick was like, I don't think he's going to be able to move against the Washington Commanders. And yet it was never talked about ever again. No legend created around Jalen Hurts overcoming an injury, digging deep and still being special. Nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about that. He literally had a brace going into that game that he then took off because he didn't like it. I mean, the guy looked like it was like, oh my gosh, is he even going to be able to play the following week if they beat the Rams? And yet it was never discussed again. And yet with Patrick Mahomes, you'd think he literally got his foot removed. Tell me why that is. I'd love to know. Tell me why that is. Why is it that Nick's own take leading into that NFC Championship game was, I do not believe Jalen Hurts is physically healthy enough right now to be able to lead this team and do what they need him to be able to do. And then he does that. And it was like, well, I got nothing to say. No. Consistency, man. Consistency. I bang on that drum all the time when it comes to playing. What makes someone great? What makes someone not great? That's what it's consistency. How consistent are you? It's why you're willing to defend Josh Allen for coming up short and not say a Dak Prescott, because you can see the level of consistency that a Josh Allen brings that a Dak Prescott clearly does not. Jalen Hurts, if he did not play great in this recent Super Bowl, we would not be able to say he consistently steps up in the biggest games and the biggest moments. You'd say he's done it in the past, but we kind of have to wait and see. Now that he's now done it in multiple Super Bowls, NFC Championship game, it's like, that's three. That's a pattern now. His last three biggest games of his career, he's absolutely balled out and played perfectly. Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, Super Bowl. It's like how many times do you want him to do? Does he need to do it 3 times now, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times? He needs to have another Super Bowl. He needs to set more Super Bowl records, back-to-back Super Bowls. He literally set records. He's got multiple records, mind you. He's got to do it again to prove it to you. Or he's got to actually change the way he wins this time around just to satisfy people who won't be satisfied anyway. Nah. Don't think so. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jalen Hurts? Do you think it's fair, the criticism that he gets, and the fact that, like, hey, we're just having a conversation, who deserves the credit for the wins? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.